now listening to Vigilantes Radio, presented by the Only One Media Group. This is the people's choice for quality interviews, celebrities, and special guests. Hosted by Demetrius Dinny Reynolds. Call in to join the mix at 701-801-9813. For the complete archive of episodes, visit onlyonemediagroup.com and be sure to like us on Facebook at Vigilantes Radio. We welcome all. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Demetrius Houdini Black Reynolds. Enjoy the show.
Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome to another incredible episode of Vigilantes Radio Live right here on iHeartRadio, and I am your host, Deanie. We have a very special guest for you guys. You definitely want to stick around. Well, I actually got to say this particular episode is pre-recorded, and I can't wait to deliver it to your inboxes. And for you guys who subscribe to the show, you'll be the first to know, and I always appreciate that. Well, before I introduce my guest, I want to say that, with feeling, every feeling has a reason and every feeling has a message. It is unwise to let your feelings control your every move, and it is also foolish to ignore them. Your mind can reason in extraordinary ways, and yet life is more than pure reason. What you feel can be just as valid in its own way as what you think. Perhaps your feelings in the past have let you down. That is no reason to ignore all the feelings you have. Just as thought patterns and physical habits can over time be changed, so too can your feelings. Your feelings can grow more positive, more fulfilling, more enriching when you decide to make them so. Think of something that truly gives you joy, and then allow yourself to feel the reality of it. Right now, feel the joy and feel the positive energy as it infuses every part of you. In addition to living by thought and action, live your life with feeling. And with feeling, add richness to every moment. My name is Coach Deanie, and change is possible. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Well, let's go. All right. Again, welcome to the show. You're listening to Vigilantes Radio Live right here on iHeartRadio, and my name is Deanie. Our interviews are designed to go beyond music, news, books, art, acting, films, technology, education, entrepreneurship, entertainment, spirituality, and sometimes even past that thing that we call the ego. Our interviews are designed to go behind the scenes and into the minds of these awesome human beings. The ones who are out there giving it their all for me, for you, and for the world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is a powerhouse of wisdom, heart, and storytelling brilliance. From the sun-scorched Mojave Desert to the vibrant pages of children's literature, she's turned personal hardship into powerful lessons for the next generation. With her newest release, Waiting for the Water Train, she invites us all to rethink how we value our most precious resource, water. Educator, psychologist, and environmental advocate, she wears many hats and wears them all beautifully. Please join me in saying welcome, friend, to the incredible Virginia De Francisco. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hello, wise words, Vinny. I enjoyed listening.
Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm very good. Excited to be here.
And we are excited too. So again, welcome. And before we dive in, what's been flowing through your heart and mind lately? Any new ideas or lingering thoughts you can't shake?
Well, as I get older, I'm wiser. And that is a true saying. And people say it all the time. When I was younger, people said it to me. And I'm like, no, but it's true. It's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling really good about children. I work with children as a school psychologist, and they're so sweet. They're so good. They're the best people on earth. And that's one reason I wrote this book, because I want to get a message out to the best people on earth that are our future of the earth. So that's kind of what this book is for.
And what is that message that you're trying to get out?
Well, first of all, water's precious, and fresh water is limited. There's only 3% of the total water on Earth is fresh water, and there's no new water. The 3% that we have is what we have, and we get it cleansed through the atmosphere, through the rain cycles, but of course it can be very polluted and can't be consumed. It is just so important for kids to know about this, and a lot of kids, most kids, don't even know where really water comes from. They just think you turn on the tap and that it comes, but 2% of the water, that fresh water that we have, is frozen in ice caps and glaciers, and then that other approximately 1% is divided up among the atmosphere and groundwater, the rain cycle, and then groundwater where it's stored. And aquifers run dry, especially here in California. We're in the mega drought, even though it's gotten better. This year is a trifecta snowpack year in the Sierra Nevadas, which is wonderful, the third year of that. However, there's not adequate water infrastructure to capture that all. It causes floods in places that don't need floods, and also 70% of the water, that the rainwater that we get, which isn't very much, runs off into the ocean without it being captured so that it can recharge the aquifers, which provides our drinking water, most of it. And so I give a lot of credit to the Central Valley farmers of California, where I think 25% of the food in the United States is grown right here in California, and they have devised ways of capturing the water, what water they get, and flooding the fields over the aquifers to recharge them. And that just means water percolates down into the ground, and that is how it's cleansed, so we can drink it later, but so it's a process, and I think kids need to know about hydrogeology, what's under the ground, where water is stored, and how we get it, and how important it is.
Yeah, do you think if and not just for children, but grown-ups too, because it's usually our responsibility to cultivate the resources and make them last for the next generations. Do you think if we were more educated as adults and children alike, that we could actually do something about this natural resource that we don't even realize is only 3% of fresh water? Because I didn't know that. That is an interesting fact.
Sad, huh?
Yeah. That's a bit alarming.
The Earth is very large, so
Yeah.
I think 3% of 100% is still a lot of water, but it's small compared to the rest of the water, because 97% of it's salt water. Yes, and you mentioned adults and children. One reason I'm aiming this at children is because they're going to be adults, and they're going to be able to vote for water proposals, and understand that. And adults, as you said, need to also understand this, so that they can vote and be aware of what's happening. And especially, when I read a water bill in California, I'm like, am I for this or am I against it? I don't know, because they're so complicated, which is double speak, or whatever you want to call it, congressman speak, which isn't fair, I don't think, to voters, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But I do think that we it's a start, to understand more about water, where it is, how important groundwater is. Because, water's in the ground, and that's mostly what comes out of our faucet is the groundwater. Yeah. And, these aquifers that are, I hate to mention it, but, bottled water, I won't mention any brand names. They pump the water, the aquifers dry, and they sell it, which is fine, and we appreciate having bottled water. I mean, we do, but that depletes what can go towards, the free water that comes out of our taps. So, it's a catch-22. What can we do? The pollution is a big thing for water. I mean, there's so many places in the United States that have had such polluted water. I think it was Flint, Michigan, wasn't it? Such polluted water that couldn't drink it, I mean, and I just read recently some other place that was you couldn't drink the water for, they were warned not to drink the water, but I can't think of what it was. But, water scarcity, I mean, Mexico City is due to run out of water. Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it. Wow, really?
Yeah. And Phoenix, Arizona, around there, they're building new homes where there's no water. They're already stressed. The water supply is stressed to Phoenix and Scottsdale and all that, but they keep building. And, the reason that this is started with me to be so important was as a young child, and that's how this book came about, is I lived in a tiny town. It was a mining town out in the Mojave Desert that did not have a well. And so we depended on a daily water train. And so we learned water conservation early. And this book, the main character is a young girl who, a little girl who likes mud pies and big mud pie puddles and big overflowing bubble baths. And she doesn't know because she's like 4, or 5. And suddenly there's no water. So she has a hard lesson to learn as they wait for the water train. I mean, it's a sweet book. Her brother calls it a water waster and it hurts her feelings, but the way they make up is she gets a bucket and she's carrying the bucket of water home, and it's very heavy, and her brother, who's older, is carrying one, and he catches up with her and he says, "Emma, I can carry 2." And then she has a moment of realization that she has responsibility too. I mean, she's just a little girl. And so she runs to catch up with her brother and says, "I can carry 1." And at the end, it's an open-ended question, like, what can Emma do now that she knows what it's like to need to conserve water? So it's a brainstorming activity for classrooms. This book is aimed at classrooms. There's back matter with activities for classroom and other resources. And since, this is, it's everywhere, this drought, we're Southwest, but the book is mostly about California, so it has a map of California aquifers and which ones are okay, which are not, which are bone dry,
Yeah.
So, and what aquifers are, and groundwater. So, but that's how that book came about, is because I lived it. From kindergarten through 3rd grade, I lived in a town without a well.
Wow. So let's talk about that, the desert ghost town where you grew up. Well, it wasn't a ghost town when you was there, but what was a typical day like for young Virginia back then?
Well, my mother was a teacher, and there was like a little herd of kids, and we didn't even wear sunscreen or hats back then, but we ran wild all over the desert. We climbed the mountains, and we had a place called Rocktown that we had that had been there when we were born, but somebody had created this rock town, outlines of houses, and we'd run and get the biggest houses, and we'd ride our little bikes and trikes up and down, play town, but it was just dirt, rocks, and cacti, and that's all it was. And our parents would say, "Do you have your canteen?" And be back before dark. So, but we didn't, that was it. We just ran crazy over the desert. See, there were road runners and lizards and cacti, and we learned a lot. Blue sky, rocks. My father was a miner, so we would take hikes together, and so I started learning about there was no well. Why wasn't there a well? And he explained all that. And he'd say, "That's an alluvial fan." And that meant water came down that mountain and created like waterfall stripes way, 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 way back before any of us were born, when the earth was still being formed, because the desert once was under the water.
Mm.
My dad found a conch shell. Do you know what a conch shell is? Conch?
I do. You could blow in it, make it like a trumpet sound.
Right. Yeah. And he found one, decaying quite a bit, but it was out in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
So that was proof. Right there.
Wow. Yeah, that reminds me of Lord of the Flies, right? They had
like Yes. You don't want to leave children alone too long. I love children, but they can be like that.
Tell me about it. I have 6 of them. Yeah. And they get together, and it's like when there's no supervision, or the oldest one is not taking the leadership role, they're just chaotic.
Yeah. Well, that's funny, as I told you, we're like that little herd of kids. I mean, there'd be like 6 of us just running around, crazy, without just, as long as we had a canteen and we're home before dark, we could go anywhere. We played in the dump.
Oh. So, did living without any guaranteed water or wells, how did that shape your worldview at that time?
Well, like I said, I really, my parents impressed on me that, we want you to have plenty of water to drink, but it's not to waste, and that how we use water, why we need water, and the last thing to go was our drinking water. I mean, we drank the water we needed, and then if the toilets weren't flushed, they weren't flushed. If their laundry wasn't done, it wasn't done. Dishes, etc. The drinking water was the most important thing for us, because, out there you can die of heat stroke, if you get dehydrated. So, but, we did very good, very well.
Nice.
I mean, because we conserved, and I was taught conservation that way, water conservation, and and my dad was very resourceful. He bought a big giant tank sit in the back of his pickup truck, and he would fill it up when he went to town and haul it back. And then when the neighbors, which there weren't very many neighbors around, there were no streets, it was just like polka dots houses. He would share the water with people that ran out.
Yeah. So, I'm curious, how did it become a ghost town? And, how did it become a ghost town?
Well, this was a U.S. gypsum mining town, and then they stopped mining there, or, relocated. I'm not even sure. It was 1960 when that ended. Or maybe it was 1966. Yeah, because we'd already moved to a larger town that was by the river, the Colorado River. And but once they shut it down, there's no well, so nobody could live out there. So you had to leave. There was no employment, there was no water. So and for years, those little houses were out there, just baking in the sun, and then squatters and all kinds of, they came and they knocked them all down. But it was sad. We used to go out there and reminisce, the kids that had lived there. We used to have little reunions there. But now all that are there is cement foundations of houses and buildings. So it's like a map of memories, for people who lived there.
Yeah. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
So the image of the water train is so powerful. And I could imagine the emotions you experienced while waiting for it. How did this anticipation work its way into Emma's story?
Well, she, I told her she's regretful and she's thirsty, and she's hanging her head, putting her head in between the pleats of her mother's skirt, and crying, sad, and her tongue's so dry that she can't even spit, and the water train is late, and the whole town is anticipating, is it going to come? Because sometimes it didn't come, and that really happened, to me. Now, in the story, I did put a well in there because I wanted to show that wells run dry. And because there's towns in California where their wells run dry. So the reason it ran dry is they wake up and the well's pumping mud, But in my real life, there was no well. But I made a well in the story so that there could be a spread showing the hydrogeology, the aquifer, and how the well was tapped. Water was tapped. So I changed that. Got to fictionalize a little bit for purpose, right? But so, she wants to know, they say, not much longer, Ma says, and then just a little, says Pa. And she says, it's longer than a little. And her brother says, you don't know nothing. And Emma knows it's longer than she wants to wait. That's all she knows. Because little kids don't know how long is a little.
Mm-hmm.
And
a little is like a second.
Yeah. And the train, there's two trains passing by because it was going somewhere else, on the way. And then the water train finally arrives. And just a true fact, it's off the subject of water, but that same train that brought in water was loaded up with gypsum flakes that went to Hollywood to use as fake snow on movie sets.
Oh, wow.
Is that funny?
Yeah.
And they did do that for years, and then they're kind of heavy, and so they made too much noise, to be snow, so they used it for snowbanks, but then they went to bubbles and things like that, different. So that wasn't, I don't know how many years it was, but for a while, the gypsum flakes, that wasn't why they were mining it. They were mining it to make sheetrock, but there were flakes left, and so Hollywood bought them. So I always thought it was so cool. I'd look at that water train and I'd like to jump on that water train and go to Hollywood. I wanted to be a Mouseketeer.
Oh, wow. That would have been quite an adventure.
Yes. You just said it was hardship, and yeah, it was. It was different, but I didn't really. My parents didn't make me feel like it was a hardship. We just had to learn to take care of our water. But living out there and growing up wild, like that with all those kids and just, doing what we did. We dug tunnels. We did all kinds of crazy things. And, I look back and it's like one of the most wonderful childhoods any kid could have.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. You'd probably like your 6 kids to run wild until dark, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but we're in a different world now.
But yeah, that's the point, is that back then you could do stuff like that.
Yeah.
We did stuff like that.
My parents would tell me, we were always up at like 6 a.m. And then if we went outside, it's okay, don't come back until this time's lunch, this time's dinner, and then you could, play until the street lights come on. And that was every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's like if my kids go outside, I have to supervise them or be a part of the games,
Yeah.
just to keep everyone safe. But
No.
me,
Yeah.
my parents, they just let me roam, be a boy.
Yeah, it was a different time. I mean,
Yeah.
it really was a different time. And, I have three grandchildren, and, um, you know, it's, I worry, because they don't get to do things. I mean, they travel and they get to have hikes and things like that, but they don't get the freedom of just, you know, going nuts.
Exploring, yeah.
Yeah, exploring. Yeah,
Cr-
exploring.
Creating trails through the woods and
Yeah.
hiking through the desert and mountains. Yeah, cool stuff that we get to do. Uh,
Just one quick thing. We every year the kids would add something toward the rock town that I was telling you about.
mhm.
So we had a project for a couple years to build a bridge across the gully. So we wouldn't have to carry our bikes over it. We could ride over it. We didn't get it done. It was pretty high.
Smart. Yeah. So the bridge didn't get built?
Well, we kept trying, but it kept falling down.
Oh.
Yeah. So as I was leaving at the end of third grade, apparently there was, and later I did see that some adults got involved, because kids just kept going, we're building that bridge and it doesn't, we can't get across it. So they were starting that, with adults.
But that's incredible. You do things for a while, it's hard and difficult, and then you figure out a way like, hey, we can make this a lot easier.
Yeah.
I like that about us people. Just as people, we'll figure it out sooner or later.
Well, yeah.
So,
We learned a lot about what didn't work. Right?
Yeah. So let me ask you, what creative ways do you suggest for kids to enjoy water without wasting it?
Well, for instance, if you want to make mud pies, and I hope kids still want to make mud pies. I don't know that anybody even knows what they are. I mean, I taught for 30 years, and I would mention mud pies, and not very many kids knew what they were. But
Oh, no.
you could have a bowl or a pan, of water, and put your dirt in there and make your mud pies and put them on whatever, without running the hose and just making a big giant mud puddle in the yard. And so that's one way. And if you want to run through the sprinklers, which I think is wonderful, just turn them on for a while. I run through them. Don't just leave them there where the water goes down the curb and things like that. And bubble baths are wonderful. Just don't let them overflow. And it can't be as deep, filling the water up to the edge of the tub. You got to make it halfway or even a third of the way and put your bubble, bath in there. So, and, maybe two people can bathe before you open the faucet and drain, But, yeah, so there's ways, just reusing water as much as you can. Like my mom, she would water the plants, what little plants we had outside, with the dishwater. And my dad came home every day just covered in white. We used to call him the snowman. And he would just take his clothes off and dump them in the laundry room. And there was a bathroom back there, and he'd take a shower before he even came in the house. And then the wash water was also, diverted to, my mother had a green thumb. There wasn't, she grew some vegetables and stuff out there, but it was all with dishwater and wash water.
Yeah, reusing it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, waiting for the water train, it includes hands-on hydrogeology activities.
Yes.
Why was it important to add that educational layer?
Because that's really my goal. I mean, it's a cute story. It's a wonderful story, but my goal was to get it into classrooms, so teachers could use it and have something fun to do, with kids, to show them how groundwater, how aquifers are formed. And I have a aquarium full of, I guess you'd call it a terrarium, with dirt and ways that you can. I've got it all set up so that you can see the water go down into the aquifer, and so that they can see that as a little experiment. And another thing that's fun is you get a big 5-gallon bottle of water, and then you have them measure out, I forget, it's like a tablespoon for this, a teaspoon for that, eyedroppers for that, and that's the fresh water into various places, rivers and lakes and glaciers and atmosphere, and the rest of it, the big 5-gallon tank that doesn't even look like it went down, is the salt water.
Yeah.
So, just recently somebody was asking me, because we were not in the fires. The LA fires were about an hour below, but it was devastating for, Southern California. Everybody felt it and wanted to help people because it was horrible. They ran out of water. The hydrants ran dry. They didn't have any water to fight the fire. And so they did end up using salt water out of desperation. And so they fought it with salt water, ocean water, and finally the fire was put out. But they don't use it generally unless they're desperate like they were, because it corrodes the firefighting equipment. It's just like your coffee pot. If you keep putting salty water in there, you're going to get it all clogged up. So they did that, and it's also not, the salt isn't good for the soil too. So there's different reasons, but they were desperate and used salt water.
Yeah, salt will cause the ground not to grow anything.
Yeah.
Barren ground, yeah.
Exactly. So they, the choice was put out the fire, so they did. And I don't actually know how much they had to use, but there was a point where we were alerted the hydrants are dry. There's no water to fight, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's just going to burn the entire, whole city of LA." It burned a lot. Pacific Palisades, Altadena, all that area. But it could have been worse. Even worse. It's still the worst fire disaster that California, and maybe, I don't know for sure in the United States, but it's pretty big. It's pretty bad, And anyway, so I just wanted to point that out, about and then somebody asked me recently about desalination. I never know how to say that word, but desalination. Anyway, there are places that are doing desal plants, and some are not in this country. I don't even know exactly where they are in this country, but I know there's some. But their studies are still out about how damaging it is to marine life. So it's not something that is being done everywhere, because, the ocean has its own problems, like dying coral reefs and things like that.
That's right.
Yeah. So, we're in an environmental crisis for the Earth.
Yes. I know it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's, and when I talk to classrooms or kids, and when I talk to teachers, I emphasize that we can't scare the kids to death,
Yeah.
Because I was growing up where there wasn't any water, and my parents handled it beautifully. They let us know how important it was to conserve water and all that, but they didn't say, "You're going to die," if you don't. So, you have to soft pedal it because they're little kids.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But they also need to know, how important water is and all that, and how they can play a part.
That's right. So, lastly, what's one activity from the book you think that every classroom should try?
Well, the one I mentioned about the 5 gallons of water and then measuring it out so they can really see what's in the atmosphere, what's in the lakes and rivers, what's frozen of the fresh water. And that visualization is just like, wow, that's all the water we've got. And the point is that there's no new water. So And then the other one I was mentioning to you, you can have a aquarium or a terrarium of that just has little tubes, and they pump the water in there, and they can see it going down through the ground, which purifies the water into the aquifer. And then the aquifer water is clean, for us to drink, to pump out. And so those are two that I can think of, but I got the book right here, but I don't want to take time to read it. But yeah, there's a lot of resources in the back that
Nice.
I do visit classrooms occasionally, and I'd like to visit more. There's drama lessons, to act out for little kids, the rain
Wow. Yeah.
cycle. The things are like that are done now, but, do more. And it's also a social, emotional read, because the brother and the sister kind of live at odds, for a short time. And her feelings are so hurt. You were talking about feelings when I was listening. And her feelings are extremely hurt. And the brother, his way of apology is that he wants to carry her bucket. And then at the end, he does say, he's sorry that he called her. He said, "I'm sorry I pointed at you," because he points at her, which is so rude. And he says, "People waste water. You're not." And she's something. I can't remember. She says, "I am too, people." People. He said, "You're not." Anyway, I can't remember. It's funny how your book goes away, in your head, because I've got another book coming out on a different topic, and then one after that another topic. I write all the time, and but I'm 2 days a week. I work as a school psychologist at a local charter school, but I retired after teaching 35 years. But I've never stopped working. I just with kids.
I love that.
I teach writing in the summers at University of California, Irvine, for like a writer's camp, and I've had all of my grandkids in my class at one time.
Nice.
And one granddaughter has helped me 2 years after she was in the and one granddaughter helped me 1 year, and we're traveling this summer during the time, and the youngest one is like, "Well, it's gonna ruin our writing camp." So maybe next year if I have the strength, But I do. I have a lot of energy for kids. I love kids.
And I bet your grands are very impressed and honored that you are their grandmother with so many abilities.
Yeah, they're sweet, and they're all good. And they're amazing. They're amazing to me. I love, and you, as you have 6 kids, watching them up, who they become. And of course, parents and grandparents all have an influence, but they're all going to become who they're going to be. They're all individual. Like the 3 grandkids, they're all different. Every one of them have a different total personality. And I'm sure you have 6 different personalities, don't you?
They're all characters.
Yeah.
My 4-year-old is going on 25, so.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yes, that's great. Yeah, and going on 25, that's just a point. I know you're. I know what you're talking about, but we got to let them have a childhood. And I know that's not what you're talking about, because my 11-year-old. My God, I think she's an old soul. They all 3 are in different ways, but they need to have a childhood, like you had and like I have. We have to let them be kids as long as we can. And so that's why I soft pedal this water thing, just to have a child view of how important water is, without telling them that, it's going to be all polluted.
Yeah.
Or it won't be all gone, but it might be polluted, because, the water that we've had for, since Earth formed, it's the same 3% of fresh water. It didn't change.
Mm-mm.
So that fresh water will still be fresh water, but can we keep it clean? And can we keep it to the places where it needs to go? Cities.
That sounds like a good call to action.
Yes, it's a vigilante, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a cause, right?
Mm-hmm. Purpose. Yeah. Mission.
Purpose. And, of course, my purpose is educating, and I'm trying to get this book on the California education list, because it is a book mostly for educators to use. I mean, it's probably not a book that a kid would go in and go, oh, I want to read in a bookstore. They might, though. Water train's kind of a weird idea. So,
and the illustration looks cool.
Yes. Let me tell you quickly about that illustrator.
Okay.
She lives in Russia. No, I'm sorry. She lives in Germany, but she went to art school in Russia. She's Ukrainian. And
wow.
The town he grew up in is pretty much not there now for a different reason, the war.
Mm-hmm.
But she moved to Germany, years before this all happened. But she is a very extremely well, talented and well-trained artist, and I felt so grateful to be able to find her. And it's in watercolor because it's a story about water. Yes.
I love it. I love it. So where can our listeners pick up a copy of the book?
It's barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com, all the online things. They're in some bookstores, but, local bookstores, but just for everybody, it's Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other, there's other sites. I look up every once in a while, I look it up, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was for sale there. So you have to do online, you just have to look it up. And I have a Facebook is Virginia Francis DeFrancisco, and that's where I have a website too, but that's where I have videos of other interviews I've had, and I'm going to post yours when I get that, so that people can hear you and hear me talk about this, and so get the word out. And I'm connecting with a program. It's in Ohio, and it's called H2O for Life, and they do programs in schools and pair up schools in the United States with places in the world that need some kind of water availability, like a well. For instance, India, often places don't have they have to carry water, and so they need a well closer to their homes. And so things like that, they pair them up with a place of water scarcity in the world, and the kids, get to know that and contribute toward that, raise money for it, to do that. So it's really a cool thing that they're doing, H2O for Life.
Wow. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they're wonderful.
All right, listeners, just in case you need the links, we will have them in the description of this episode and in the show notes. So all you guys have to do is just click the links. What an extraordinary conversation with Virginia D. Francisco. Today we traveled through the sun-baked Mojave Desert, stood alongside young Emma as she learned to value a very precious drop of water. And guys, you can pick up the book and explore how, childhood lessons shape lifelong passions, from blending emotional intelligence with environmental awareness to inspiring the next generation of change makers. Virginia is truly a beacon of wisdom and heart. So make sure you grab her latest book, recommend it to your school or curriculum, waiting for the water train, and keep an eye out for Unlimited and Carl St. Clair's Piano Naps coming very soon. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. Don't forget to share this episode with the fellow dreamers and change makers. And if you're feeling generous, you can buy me a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/Vigilantes Radio to keep the good energy flowing. And pretty much, guys, I just use that money to buy books. I'm making reading sexy again, so join. Until next time, stay inspired, and remember, every small act of kindness and conservation makes a world of difference. Thank you so much, Virginia, for your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much, Denny. Very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace to all. My name is Deanie, and I am the host of Vigilantes Radio Live. I think that we are beyond just asking cool questions and getting cool responses. I think that we are here as creatives to provide an example that you can do things different outside of expectations, because some of us simply were not born into the club. But there is perhaps a door, window, or back gate that we can leave a clue for you to get into. Life is short, but there are plenty of moments to try and get it right. Pursuing your dreams and learning from mistakes may be tough, but regret is tougher. To book your interview, email us at vradio@onlyonemediagroup.com. That's a V as in victorious, or visit onlyonemediagroup.com. I'm counting on you. Heaven, we all are counting on you to step into your purpose and your passion. You are listening to Vigilantes Radio Live on iHeartRadio, providing you with an opportunity to dive deeper.
You are now listening to Vigilantes Radio, the people's choice for quality interviews, art, music, and hot topics. Hosted by Demetrius Houdini Black Reynolds. All episodes of this podcast are available for free download at www.onlyonemediagroup.com.